Welcome back. I just posted a video under the digital, I think I call it digital security or digital footprint section, and it's about KidCheck. I highly suggest if you're using any kind of a check-in app to read the terms and conditions. And if you're not clear on why that's important, then just check out the video. I'm going to go ahead and put the link here, whether or not you're on Rumble or YouTube. Just gives an understanding on how to find terms of service, to understand and interpret what they're actually telling you. And you and I know that what they are telling you is the least of what they're going to do, not the extent of what they're going to do. So anyways, that's available. But I want to comment a little bit more on this thread because it is really important right here. I'll just show you that it's on both channels here right now. Okay, so we're dealing with a change in this country where the shift is occurring. We are being replaced. And many people have said for decades we're being replaced. They've said from different angles. I started yelling at 12, 13 years ago now that we're being replaced because under the Obama administration, H-1B visa holders take priority over the locals. They are getting the better jobs with higher pay, not lower pay, but higher pay. They're able to buy out in the higher neighborhoods, forcing people out of neighborhoods. And then people like you and I all of a sudden find ourselves in apartments or on the streets. And we're thinking, what did we do wrong in our life? We were replaced is what we did wrong in our life. And we've seen that replacement has been calculated over the last few decades and accelerating now. But part of what's going on here is this mass migration into this country is going to cause more and more of a flux, unfortunately, of what we're seeing right here. So what we want to do is look at there's more details. I'm not going to get into the weeds on this particular case, but there's quite a few key notes that are coming up here. For instance, the court records show that the individual who was arrested in this current case has previously convicted kidnapper. This is his job. This is his career. He was sentenced to 24 years and 11 years in prison, respectively, although it is unclear how long he remained incarcerated. If he even served them concurrently or independently, but he's only 38. So anyways, you can read the article and pull more out of this, but this person got convicted for doing something, put in our system, clearly let out of our system, and is continuing his career. And we are going to see more and more and more of this. I didn't read the whole article, but I'm wondering what the nationality is at this point, because in some countries, this is a way of life. This has not historically been the way of life here, but we're priming the pumps for this to happen. And we all know that this has been going on a long time because we've been exposed to these movies that show what happens once they're taken into the system. And again, this is something that nobody wants to talk about. When I was in elementary school, we would go through trainings. We would sit down with our children and teach them what happens if a car comes out, what happens if they have a puppy and candy, or say that I've got to take you to we'd go through these drills and practice role play to make sure the child was not blindsided the first time it happened. And yet still 2 of my peers were kidnapped at that point. When somebody wants to take you or a child, they will take that child. But there are a lot more kids who got away and really highlighted as heroes themselves, as they knew what to do. They knew that something was wrong and they ran. They may have run kicking and screaming, but they got themselves out of there. The statistics are not good right now. Now, this is one of just a horrible side. I can't even imagine working for this organization, but this was January 10th of 2022. That really highlights a parent's worst nightmare. I mean, how can you focus your career on this? And yes, it's necessary. Individuals do nothing but educate and search after our children and bring them back home. And I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but just quickly, in 2020, more than 340,000 kids went missing. 5,000 children are kidnapped each year. In 2020, only 0.11% of missing children cases were a result of even strangers. The rest were known to the child. 12-plus-year-old children are the kidnapping victims in around 80% of the cases. So these are kids who can run the other way and yet are grabbed. Girls 12 to 17 are the most typical. Human trafficking is a $150 billion a year industry. 99% of sex trafficking victims are females. Human trafficking wasn't a federal crime in the United States until 2000. That was just 22 years ago. Every year, 600,000 people go missing in the United States. 43% of global kidnapping are for ransom, actually occurred in Asia. So there's some more statistics if you want to look through these. I'm going to keep moving forward here though, but the website is highlighted here. But when we look at this, I want you to highlight individuals like Oscar Blue. He's got his own YouTube channel. And he does live videos. This morning he had a video up of people waiting at the US southern border to cross, and they were waiting for the border patrol to get there so they could open the gates and let them in. He videos all this for you. He then goes down to the southern border of Mexico and watches how that video, it's wide open. And it's not only wide open, so many people come in there and actually protest the government there that they have no food and clothing and shelter for them. And then further protest that they don't want to stay. They want to go up to the United States where everything will be given to them because our administration is advertising to them. Hey, come here, we'll make life easier. How is life easier when we know these statistics? How is life easier when we know that all these individuals pushing past our border know that they're doing it illegally? I mean, they can trick their minds and think, well, the president said this, or we're going to be given stuff, so it's okay, or life is bad. No, they're doing it illegally. This is not legal. And for many individuals, like many of the Democratic governors, they're saying, hey, it's racist to put up a border, and it's racist to not let them in, and it's racist to do this. You know what it is? It's racist to completely open a border and make a country not be able to defend itself internally or externally. Immigration is not bad. Immigration is a phenomenal process, especially in this country where we open our doors. We are constantly looking for ways to assist other individuals in a variety of ways, whether outside our border or inside our border. We are constantly looking for ways for people who want to live here to have a path to gain citizenship, to gain work, to gain education if necessary, and benefits to go along with them to help them along the way. This is a different situation. This is like highway robbery at the worst. And what Oscar's been documenting is anytime there's one, there's three. It's a trifecta, right? Guns, drugs, and people all get trafficked together. By lowering the gates on our borders and not anybody coming in, it is absolutely the destruction that could take down this entire country. You can look at the stats on fentanyl. You can look at the stats of the weapons and where they're coming from and where they're going. Meanwhile, you're being told your Second Amendment wasn't actually meant for you. And it was originally estimated that so far this year, there were between 40 and 60,000 unaccompanied minors who came into this country. Another stat that I saw that was even a little bit more valid looked like it had been about 168,000 unaccompanied minors. It's a very small percentage that this government ever sees again. They are used as slaves. They are manipulated. And as we saw in the report that I put out last week, many are being harvested for their organs, and that's the most disgusting thing I could even think of, above and beyond the disgust of the other routes that these children are made to do. Many of them are microchipped because when you cross that border with the coyote, you now belong to that coyote's organization or cartel. This is not a free ride for you or your family. You now belong to them for the rest of your life. It is slavery. So Oscar Blue, live videos, it's amazing. He has walked with the caravans. He has interviewed both sides of the story. He is for migration, but he is for migration that is legal and honors all people and offers a clear process, not in guarantees destruction. So if we go back to this case, in some countries, this is a way of life. This is how people make their money. But what's interesting is This is actually an heir to a billionaire fortune, according to this article. Now, I haven't validated this, so I don't know if she's the sole heir. On one article, that is what I saw. But you got to know that at some point, somebody with experience, let's say an individual who's already been in prison and let out early, right? And we know he was let out early because even if it was 24 years and he's 38 now, what, he was 14 when he did it the first time? Well, somebody specifically let him out and set him up for this next gig. And it's going to ratchet up higher and higher. Now, what do we know here? A lot's come out about this business. Of course, Walsh came out and created an entire career, a life mission out of it. We saw him on TV for forever. And then we also know Megan Walsh, his daughter, coming out on the truth with his mother and father and the activities on how they live their life, what they did before she was born, the islands that her father would visit. This is a very interesting series here that was posted. And this is on Dark Post if you want to look at that. I'm going to leave this on the screen a little bit so you can look it up too. Megan Walsh, this was October 29th, 2021. Quite a bit of information there. But the thing is, this is being set up on purpose. It's an industry. And when you have an industry worth that much money, people are going to fight to defend it. I'm going to click on something that's going to seem unrelated. But when I'm stating that you are the enemy, we look at something like this. Attorney is explaining judge's comments on this special master ruling. So this is the bully situation, right? Not only has this individual been absolutely charged, he was friends on both sides, gave money to both sides. Everybody had good comments about him. There were some challenges, business challenges here and there, some bankruptcies, but overall, both sides liked him until he threw his hat in the ring and he became persona non grata, right? All attacks have come against him and his family. And so the ultimate attack is they with armed, whatever you want to call them, it's a militia, went into his home, his private residence, and raided it and took items out. And he immediately came out and said what happened and that he wanted his stuff back. And he was laughed at in a mockery and he had no right. And it was, they'd go into nukes and all these things that clearly weren't, because it never showed up in any of the redacted. It never got leaked out of the organization, which if they found it would have leaked. And yet he kept saying, well, at least get a special counsel, at least get a special master ruling so that the people who took it aren't the ones who get to choose who gets to go through it and what is redacted and what is looked at. Have an independent party look at this. Now, by a special master, realistically, that's still somebody within the same organization, because if they're not, they wouldn't get the next job, right? Because if you don't do what they want to do, you're not going to get pulled into this. However, the idea, at least putting in arm's length distance. But now a judge has finally granted a request to appoint somebody. How long ago did this happen? This was 2 weeks ago. Don't you think that those who broke into his house illegally grabbed the information and have been hiding and then lying about it and pulling at him as a bully, don't you think they've already gotten everything they want out of it? Don't you think they've made copies of everything already? Oh, sure, go ahead and hire a special master. Now, the conversation went something like this. Is there anything in there that we can let him have back? Oh, sure, he can have it all back. Okay, good. Can he have it now? No, we can give it all back to him in 2 weeks. Okay, so 2 weeks he can, well, let's not make it that easy. He's going to want a special master. So let's go ahead and allow him to hire a special master and have him oversee, so there's a perception that we're playing fair. But do it in 2 weeks because we need to grab our data first. And I guarantee everything they needed was grabbed within that first 24 hours. It's just a game that's being elongated here. But why is he hated so much? Why is the attack on him? Because there's a playbook. And the playbook says that when we don't like you, we tell you to go away. And when you don't get the hint, we turn up the heat. And when the heat isn't hot enough and you're still hanging around, then we start going after you. And the playbook says that most individuals, especially in politics or corporations, will say, you know, I'm going to take some more time to spend with my family. Clear sign. In this case, this individual decided that every time he gets knocked in, he pops up even stronger. Gets knocked down, he pops up even stronger. He won't go away. He won't play by the playbook. Meanwhile, the individual on the screen, as corrupt as they can be, is part of this industry that traffics the trifecta. This is serious business. Our borders being open are not about the kindness of our hearts of letting people into our homes. Because did this individual open up his home to everybody that's coming across the border that needs to live there? Maybe the homeless vet on the street, did he get to live? No, in fact, he had Homeland Security build a wall around his house. How about the private security that Pelosi has at her house in San Francisco? In fact, she turned her whole neighborhood into a secure zone. All her neighbors have to pay for that private guard. They chip in as an HOA on a private street. What if you have a boat? You can enjoy your boat. You bought the boat, you own the boat. You can invite some friends on if you want. But what happens if somebody's that says, that's not fair? Why do only you get to be on the boat and only your friends? And then they just start putting people on your boat, helping people on left and right and left and right. And the boat's for 10 people. And now you have 2,000 people. What happens to the boat? It sinks. It cracks apart. It's inundated. It can't do its job, nor can the United States when it's this inundated. There isn't enough water in our pitchers to share anymore. We've got to slow this down, which is why organized legal paths for migration work. This mass busing of individuals and mass transportation by airplane into this country to even skip the borders altogether is only the first phase. Because as we go back to the beginning of this conversation, my friends, we are being replaced. And although I talked about unaccompanied minors, the majority of the individuals that have been documented either as getaways or physically documented as coming across that border are military-aged males. This administration wants to be not civil and conflict. And it doesn't matter which side you're on because he's brought in his own army. If you're struggling in another country and you're given the opportunity to this beautiful, beautiful, amazing United States of America, you're going to do anything once you get here to stay here. You're going to make sure to fight tooth and nail. And if you have to remove somebody that you see along the path because the government says if you're going to stay here, this is what you have to do, then you're going to do it. Well, maybe not you and I, but we also are not the ones who just illegally broke into the country. And as we go back to the earlier conversation, this is not a war of the flesh. This is a war of good versus evil. And I ask again that the solution comes from love and prayer and not from hatred or anger. That's not who we are, and that's not who we presented to be. You and I know we are not the enemy. We are on the side of the light. But as long as they identify us as the enemy, we are the target. Blessings to you all today. And I highly recommend checking out Oscar Blue on YouTube. Great information. Where'd that one go? Let's see here. I'm sorry, I don't have the video parked right here. Oscar Blue is who I would highly suggest. And if you haven't already seen the videos on KidCheck, this isn't just about this particular app. It talks about in general, and it explains specifically what the terminology means for you. Have a wonderful day.